Best of R / malicious compliance episode 131. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. Move your car. This is a short and simple story that happened years ago when I still lived at home. I was 20 at the time and my sister was 17, still in high school. I was about to leave for work and noticed she parked her car behind mine. So I asked her if she could move her car to let me out. I figured that she could just park her car where mine was once I was out of the way. She rolled her eyes and for whatever reason had a slight attitude about it and told me to move it yourself if you're the one that has to leave. She couldn't even be bothered to give me her keys for me to do so. So I did. I moved her car and parked it a mile down the road in my grandparents' driveway and walked back. I put her keys back and didn't say anything as I grabbed mine and just left. Made me late to work that day, but I didn't care. Next time I asked her to move her car, she begrudgingly did. Thank you. Next. Pay more for less food. Okay. So I work for a major restaurant chain as a server. Given ongoing situation, we had been doing takeout and delivery only at the time of this story. Also, we were honoring our online only deals in an effort to increase business. Normally our food is fairly expensive without being a fine dining place. These online deals would discount the total cost around 50%. Great value. I was working the front host stand and therefore answering phones. I had one customer call to order pickup and he promptly cut me off midway through my answer speech. This immediately irritates me, but I take breath and soldier on. I just continue expecting a certain type of customer / interaction at this point. Customer jumps right into the order, so I politely backtrack him to take phone number and name. The customer wanted a double order of wings and a medium pizza. Okay, no problem. I put it through with some difficulty as the customer isn't making it easy, having to clarify or repeat certain questions, etc. But this is part of the job and he's not being outright rude, just frustrating. Finally I give him his total, approximately $51. Then mention to him that right now we have a special that has 3 pounds of wings and 2 medium pizzas for $49.99, but he cut me off before I could get much further than just wanted to let you know that right now we have a special. Okay, fine. I'm tired of arguing. I put it through as requested. Of course I proceed to telling my colleagues about this guy and how he even turned me down trying to save him money despite being short and, what felt to me as, entitled during the exchange. We all have a laugh. When customer arrives, I choose to take his payment first and then bring out his food. As he accepts it, I point out that for next time, what I was trying to tell you about the special is that you could have gotten another pound of wings and another pizza for $1.50 less. He looked at me like I had 3 heads and sheepishly mentioned maybe he should have let me tell him about it. Yeah, you think? Thank you. Next. Pizza party screw-ups. Normal on mobile disclaimer. This is a long one, TLDR at the bottom. So when I first started college, I worked in this small pizza shop the students could use their meal plans on. If you don't know what a meal plan is, it's basically you pay a set amount per semester and can swipe a card to eat whenever you want, with rules depending on how much you paid. Now I have to say, pizza was awesome. High quality ingredients, interesting combos of toppings, and really good salads. But we were a test kitchen. This brand had never been anything other than a sit down and enjoy style of pizza. So turning it into a fast food place was difficult. We weren't that busy normally. Good days $800. Bad days maybe $250. When he came to see how we were holding up, the brand owner, the one who created the entire store name, told us to only set enough dough to use that day. Absolutely no more. We made the large Sicilian style, and it took 3 pounds of dough per pizza. If you didn't want it to be thin in places, you'd round it to 5. So any given day we'd go through, roughly, 60-80 pounds. We had to let it rise for a few hours cause it was a yeast base. Now on any day this was no big deal. Get down to half a pizza, stretch a dough and let it rise. Easy. Until the end of the semester came. The compliance. Now till this point we weren't selling as much as our big boss would have liked, so for the last 2 months of the semester he was in-house breathing down our necks for the slightest thing he could see as waste. He was also pressing us to sell as many whole pizzas as we could. Oh boy did we. For those of you who have never had a meal plan, no one uses all of the meals they've paid for. Most people end up with like 20-30 left. They'll buy a bunch of food for a party and be done with it. But there are ones that end with near 100. That is where this goes. I worked from 9 AM to 6 PM these last few weeks cause my finals were done and it was easy money, so I had heard people saying how they were going to use their meals and just buy a bunch of food. I even offered to take down orders if they wanted to let us know ahead of time. By the last day I had orders for over 65 pizzas for multiple people. Being the good employee I was, I told our big boss about it. He was impressed and set out extra for the day when we started the prep. I also knew it was not even close to enough. Most college kids don't think about calling ahead for really big orders. They just expect to be able to get it. So there were going to be plenty of those kinds of people. He said the words that doomed our kitchen: if we need more as the day goes, we will get it as needed. 6 employees and our kitchen manager, we'll get to his role in a bit, just gave up and went with it. So the day went on. 11 o'clock came and immediately we had orders non-stop for 3 and 4 pizzas each. We had the pre-orders already prepped and rising, so each time we took chunks out of the dough laid out our boss got more and more nervous. By 3 we were out of the raised dough and were scrambling to get the chilled stuff to rise enough to stretch. 4 o'clock and all the other restaurants around us had closed down cause they were out of supplies and had went home. We were still catching up. Our big boss is red-faced, pissed off, and trying to blame us for all his bad planning. Then the final blow came in the form of 2 frat boys and their entire house. They asked if there was a limit on the number they could order. I was on register and looked by at my kitchen manager, call him Steven, and asked. He got the most devilish smile and said, as long as you don't mind the wait, we can sell you as many as you can buy. These 2 mad lads bought 25 pizzas apiece. They were having a final party and wanted to blow the rest of their meals on it. As soon as I called out the order to our big boss in the back, all I hear is a frantic "How many did you say?" He comes running up front, looks over the receipt, and all the color drains from his face. He tries offering a refund but it has to go through the school and can take over a week. Had to deal with a brat mom and her child learning this. So in the end, he had to stay and help us make them. It took over 6 hours to cook them all. Steven emptied the ingredients over their pizzas so they were absolutely loaded. We all got paid OT, and Steven quit the following week. Listen to your employees. Epilogue. On our last day Steven pulled us all into his office and gave us all $50 out of his own pocket, because we never should have had to put up with that brain-dead ass monkey, and that he was sorry we had to. To this day, one of my favorite managers, TLDR big boss, comes to try and cost cut. Ends up eating his words while having to make 100 plus pizzas and paying us all overtime. Edit. I should mention that when the next semester started the entire restaurant had been remodeled. A completely new one was in its place with Steven back as the manager looking like the cat that caught the canary. He said Big Boss pulled his place out and we were free to choose the one that replaced it. He offered us out jobs back with a 50-cent raise. We almost 4x our daily business in the other 3 places were a little salty we were doing so well, but it was all good. Never had another problem like that again. Thank you. Next. Must attend interview in person. I was working for a university in the UK as an admissions officer when I decided to apply for the role of senior admissions officer in the same office. I submitted my application and didn't hear anything for a while. A week or so later, I was abroad for a week to visit my family when I received an email to confirm that I got invited for an interview. The next day at 9 AM, I replied and asked if we could postpone the interview until Monday because I'd be back by then, but they refused. The lady who refused was my current manager and she knew I was abroad, so I didn't think this was very fair. I asked if we could do the interview over Skype instead, but she also refused this. The interview time was set and if I was interested I will be there, otherwise it's my loss. I was pissed off as I couldn't believe how inflexible they were. I started rereading the email again and decided to go through the attachments to see what I had to prepare for the interview. I noticed they added a travel expense form which stated that if you travel from 5 miles or further you could claim your expenses. Being abroad in Europe is definitely over 5 miles, so I decided to drive to the airport. Booked the last flight which was £350 for a one-way flight, got a cab from the airport and stayed in a hotel near the university as my house would have been at the other side of London. I made it to the interview in time and they were shocked to see me as they obviously didn't expect me. The interview went well, but I did not get the job. When I handed in my expense claim form I was advised that it only applied to UK travel and they refused to pay. I asked them why they sent me the claim form when they knew I was traveling and from abroad and said that nowhere on the form it stated that it was for UK travel only. They said it was their policy, but I was not allowed to view said policy. I was due a lot of money, so I decided to file a Freedom of Information request for them to provide the policy. This appeared to be a historical policy and as they could not send me the evidence they decided to pay my travel expenses which came to a total of £550 plus. The policy has been updated since. Edit. I now work for a design agency and am no longer with the university. Edit 2. Thank you for my first award ever. Thank you. Next. I'll be happy to assist you. This happened to my brother and not me, but it is still one of the best stories I've ever heard. My brother used to work at Chick-fil-A as a cashier and would take the customer's order. One day, he had a Karen come in. First she just fine, until she got her food. She complained that the bun was bad and she wanted a new one. My brother was going to assist her until she said just do your job properly and get my bun. He shrugged and agreed. He gets a brand new bun, goes to the register and rings it up. He looks at her and says that'll be 27 cents. She looked at him really confused and asked why she had to pay. To which my brother said I'm just doing my job properly. Thank you. Next. Parents forbid me to use my preferred name at school. I'll just keep adding letters to the end of it. I came out to my parents as a trans man before the start of my freshman year of high school, and they were extremely hostile about it. So much so that they forbade me from using my chosen name at school or even with my friends. Well, I thought that was a load of crap and changed my name in the school system on the first day. It had my legal name listed but for most purposes my preferred name was used. After about 3 months they found out about it and were pissed. So they said to me, OP, you have to change your name in the school right now. So I was like okay, I will. And so I changed it from Bob, not my actual name, to Bob. The next day they checked the homework portal again and discovered I had indeed changed it, but not to my legal name. OP, we told you to change IT back to legal name. No, you told me to change it. And I did. My god, were they pissed. I was grounded for a month and my phone was taken, but it was totally worth it. So after that, every time they told me to change it I would tack on another letter. By the end of the school year my name was Bob. Eventually they stopped grounding me and just gave up. I was allowed to use my preferred name the rest of high school, provided it wasn't around them. Thank you. Next. Focus on doing just what you're paid to do. A good few years back, during college, I had an evening job doing data entry with a friend for a large local company. It wasn't particularly complicated, but we had stacks of handwritten notes by agents who were in a rush, often with quite aggressive clients, and weren't always the most intelligent people, so the notes were often quite difficult to decipher. We had to decipher them, shorten them into summaries with acronyms, i.e., their 2 or 3 paragraph rant would often be shortened into one line, and enter this into a strange old terminal, like DOS/old school Unix application, and choose the next action. I was on minimum wage and would work 4 days a week from 5 PM until 9 PM. There were dozens of full-time staff doing the same during the day, but they were behind. Our targets were 25 an hour, so 100 a night. I was working with my friend and we had this grumpy girl as our manager. I think she had to do overtime to supervise us, and didn't like it. Once I apparently cracked a couple too many jokes to my friend and she complained to the guy who had hired me. If he had said to be a little more professional, fine, but he didn't. He said stop talking because you need to focus on hitting targets. I said I am hitting targets, I don't care. Focus on doing just what you're paid to do. Fine, I did. Because of how fast I could type at this point, and an uncanny ability to decipher written nonsense quickly, I'd been hitting a minimum of 50 an hour before this chat, sometimes even up to 75 if the stacks were repetitive. After that moment, I hit 100 a night without fail. Occasionally slightly over if a stack was nearly finished, maybe 105. I did this for a week, until the boss said I can do more and he raised my targets to 30/hour, which was still a lot lower than I was doing before. but was the maximum any of his full-time staff were targeted, so he couldn't go higher. I hid that for another few days, and luckily he saw the funny side and offered me full-time work whenever I could do it, months over the summer and Christmas to help with their backlogs, which I gratefully accepted and stopped playing work to rule.